I think it's important to say what Charlie Kirk was doing. Again, I don't agree with all the things that he would say. I disagree with most of the things. Not everything with every person because they're a Republican or a conservative means I hate them. But we never look at what draws us together. And, Charlie Kirk would do what we and what our democracy was built on, which is go to the public square, get folks who disagree with you, and let's have a debate. Let's talk about what you think is right and what I think is right, and let's figure it out. Now, he was a prolific debater, so it really wasn't fair, and he was good at it. So that's why he did the tours. And for all of you Democrats who want to be organizers, he used it to organize, and he was damn good at it. Whatever methods he had or you agree or disagree with, you can't take away from him the way that he organized on campuses and built something from nothing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote Podcast. Man, it is good to be back, and I know one thing for sure, that's that Mike Madrid missed me.
I missed you a lot, man. Watching you like online and getting pictures from you on your trip and watching you live La Vida Rocha, and I'm just like,
shit, I'm writing that down.
Well, yeah, you can steal that. You can have
Livin.
that. Live in La Vida Rocha.
La Vida Rocha.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I'm impressed. You're climbing Half Dome. You're like out catching fish in some other crazy estuary. Write that down too. There's a good word for it. An estuary somewhere.
When a woman gets old, her estuary gets low. Is that right? Anyway, different thing.
These estuary shots. Yeah. How was the trip? How was your vacation?
It was good. And look, I listened to the last podcast before we talk about the trip, and I know we got to talk about all the things that are going on in these dark times. But let's, I think it's important to start this with some levity, if I use that word right. Mm-hmm. And, I appreciate all the listeners. And Mike, what a great podcast. I was in another country. I was in a jungle gym, literally in a gym in the jungle, listening to your podcast with that amazing reporter talking about, I like to regurgitate your podcast so I listen to the damn thing when I'm gone. I mainly do it to see if you're talking shit on me, but it was really good. And I like the best part was when you admit that you kind of ramble when I'm not here to guide you, because you wind up Mike Madrid and just point him in the right direction and he'll just go. And I am an expert for boys and girls at home, winding him up and pointing him without him even knowing it, and then reeling him back and then pointing him. And when he's not there, he's just like, well, I guess the podcast is over.
You can tell Chuck is a great campaign consultant because he keeps people on message without them even knowing it. It's like,
this is true.
Get back over here and talk about this. Get back here.
And there's certain things I do not talk about with Mike Madrid because I know that we don't talk about those things sometimes, and we just let those things go. But anyway, look, it was great. Me and my amazing wife, and I should also shout out Finn Gomez, our good friend at CBS, and his amazing wife, Sarah, who are two of our dearest friends, climbed Half Dome with us. I want to give them credit. Yes, all four of us trekked up a mountain starting at 4 o'clock in the morning with headlamps on. We did just short of 17 miles. It took us 12 hours and we climbed to 9,000 feet. That's fucking crazy to even say. And it was, on top of that, when we got to right near the top, a rainstorm came in and the ranger downstairs was like, you can go up there, but if the rain gets any closer, I'm leaving, and that should tell you what you should do.
And you guys kept going, of course.
Of course we did. And then at one point I was like, we're close enough to the top, right there at the top. Let's just get off this mountain because our lives mean more than that, and common sense took over, and we made it right to the top. But we got off that mountain. We all survived, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I make light of too many things because I like to joke. But, our national parks, when I walked into that national park, later we're going to talk about us looking for things that bring us together as humans and as individuals, at least I am. But, our national parks and the beauty of this country, when you walk into that park, you forget if you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, you're a liberal. Like, it's just a mind-boggling, beautiful place that somebody in our government, elected officials, was like, you know what we should do? We should protect this land for everybody to enjoy for generations. Because of their sacrifice and smartness, an old Mexican redneck who grew up in a trailer house in East Texas can be like, holy shit, this is beautiful.
Yeah. Yosemite Valley is extraordinary. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but I've been a Californian for 50 of my 54 years on the planet. And I just went to Yosemite the first time 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, how did I not? I mean, California is a big, beautiful place. And sorry, Texas, you're a distant second. Sorry, Chuck. California is extraordinary, but Yosemite is like one of the crown jewels. And you go into that valley and you are just in awe of the majesty of nature with these just huge trees and huge cliffs and Half Dome. To say that you climbed Half Dome That's a bucket list thing, man. I mean, that's really big. A lot lightning strikes up there too. A lot of lightning hits up on top of Half Dome.
And the big redwoods are up there, and we went and did some fishing the day before, of course, because we were there. We trudged up a stream, walking up rocks and granite. It was really great and cool. And then that was an add-on to the trip. The reason I was gone so long is that you have to get in a lottery to climb Half Dome because they don't want too many people on the top of this mountain because there are literally like railings that they put up just during the summer and they take them down in the winter, and they don't want too many people up there, or people literally, as Mike Madrid was telling me before we started the program, just fall off of this mountain. Yeah. So I won the lottery to climb it this one day. Well, me and Ebony had already had a planned trip to Belize for our 1-year anniversary, like our one big trip of the summer we try to do together. So we just tagged on Half Dome and then flew from Half Dome to the rainforest of Belize, right on the Guatemalan border, Mike.
So when he talked about being a working class redneck Mexican, he's full of shit. He's going from Half Dome climbing, winning lotteries, going to Belize, fishing all over the world.
Nobody said I ain't never won some money now. I said I was broke. I ain't saying I'm broke right now. Let's be clear. And then let me tell you what Chuck Rocha does with his money. Once Chuck Rocha made a little bit of money, I told Ebony Payne, I said, girl, I ain't never seen nothing. I ain't never been nowhere. And we finna go see some things and do some things. And she was like, giddy up. So that's why me and Ebony got married.
I'll give you some culture. Sure.
Yeah. So I was like, let's go see some shit. And she grew up as poor as I did. She's like, let's go. So we ended up then in a cave in Belize where you have to swim into the cave to go into and then hike a mile into this mountain. And you find the skeleton remains of a mine where they had went there and sacrificed people. Wow. And the skeletons are still there.
I don't know if I want to see that, man.
I'm just saying, this is how you know that tourists can mess up anything is when we got there, because Chuck Rocha, I'm going to take a picture of everything. I want everybody to know what I got to see and do. And they were like, you can't take your camera. And I'm like, oh my God, why? This would be great. I want to take a picture of a dead skeleton. Of course, the skeleton's dead. But anyway, he said, well, because of people like you, Mr. Rocha, up until 8 years ago, we would let people bring their cameras in, waterproof cases. He goes, but you can walk right up to the skeletons. And the last time we did that, a guy dropped his phone on the skeleton and broke the skull.
Oh my God.
You reckon that guy's going to have his ancestors coming back to haunt him?
Yeah, and should.
He should.
I mean, come on, man. Like, have a little bit of class. An American for sure, 100%.
I am sure he was as white as the driven snow from Milwaukee, and he was showing his wife, trying to take a selfie with it. I could see it.
Taking a selfie with it, for sure.
100%. And the spirits were just going up in his nose. They were going to haunt him forever. Ever. Anyway, it was a great trip. Hat tip to everybody. Thanks for keeping this thing going. We had a great time. We would end up in a place called Placencia, which is on the coast. We went down there and did a little fishing and caught some tarpon. And I was doing some scouting for some conservation trips that I want to take in other countries like we did. Remember when we went to Mexico and tagged the marlin? So I think next summer's boys' trip to do some conservation stuff will be in Belize. I found this amazing, let me end with this and then we'll jump. I met this amazing family of fishermen down there, Mike. You would be enthralled with these folks. Now, first of all, you should know the Belizean, that's a word I learned, Belizean culture down there on the coast is not Mexican. It's not Spanish as you would think, and it's some Spanish, but it's very Bahamian. It's very islandish. They all speak with this Creole, like that you're in the Bahamas or somewhere. And it just threw me off. And, I know zero about history. That's why we have Mike Madrid here. And come to find out that the British had colonized this part of Guatemala and fought the Spaniards, and they were fighting over mahogany trees because the British wanted these big, huge mahogany trees that grew in these rainforests to make furniture in England, of course, and rape and pillage the lands there, right, of all the things. So I learned a lot about colonization and about there were slaves that the boats never made it to the mainland that were shipwrecked there. And there's a whole group of folks from Africa in a village in Placencia who have never been slaves in their life, who have this whole little town there. And they're just really the awesome history of learning the different cultures that are all like melded together was fascinating.
Look at you learning, man. You're going to start reading books soon. If you're not,
I'm never going to read a book. I am not going to read.
You're crazy out there, like learning, and she's taking you to the Basilica of the Virgen de Guadalupe and museums and taking you down these rabbit holes. You're getting cultured, man. You're getting like college education for free.
I've seen some things, right? Yeah. I'm a visual learner. I'm learning that. So getting to see the things and do the this fishing guy, his daddy was a fisherman, his brother's a fisherman, and his sister came with us. Like the whole family coming out. Like they are really cool people. Shout out to Charlie Leslie and Charlie Leslie's dad and his sister Julie, who took me fishing in Belize. If you go down to Placencia, look up Charlie Leslie's fly fishing. Great family, salt of the earth, good people. But I had a great time. And thank you again, Mike Madrid, for keeping the trains running on time here at the Latino Vote podcast. It's good to be back. I wish I was coming back in a more upbeat sense, but I think today y'all should know that we're recording this on Thursday morning. Yeah, Thursday morning. What's today's date, Mike? It's the 11th.
Yeah.
On Thursday. And Mike, it's early in the morning for Mike Madrid. It's 7 a.m. in California. And we wanted to, address Charlie Kirk, who was shot yesterday. Mike, I listened. And I'm going to turn it over to you. I listened to your Substack last night. Mike came on and did like this live Substack as he was landing back in California. I thought it was really, really good in the way that you explained it. And I'd like for you to kind of give me some thoughts this morning on the Charlie Kirk assassination and, not who we are, where we're going, all of the platitudes. But I think, kind of recapping some of the things you said last night for a podcast audience. Because I think they were very moving. Like we all have a responsibility to fix this. It's not on a party. It's not on a movement. And if you're part of the party movement, I like last night, you were telling people to move on and you're part of the problem if you're doing this bullshit. So anyway, over to you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chuck. I appreciate that. And appreciate you tuning in too. Because you can't get enough Mike Madrid, apparently. I understand that. It's a common problem.
It's show prep for me.
Show prep. Yeah. What I'd like to say is, I try to look back for historical analogies and allegories to understand this crazy moment in time. And I think it's really important for people to understand that humanity has been through most of these episodes before. History, is replete with examples of society going through turmoil. And it's important, I think, for me, or at least I find some sort of comfort in trying to understand the current moment through what our ancestors did before us. And there's a lot of analogies as to what this country has gone through before. I think 1968 is a really good example. I was thinking about that this morning, and I know it's really early, but when we talk about an era of political assassinations, 1968 is kind of rises to the top there at a time when countercultural movements and countercultural leaders were being mowed down. Listen to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s speech last night. It's an extraordinary speech off the cuff when the news breaks that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. If you haven't listened to that, Andreas, let's post the YouTube clip of that. It's really beautiful.
You can be filled with bitterness and with hatred and a desire for revenge. We can move in that direction as a country, in greater polarization, filled with hatred toward one another. Or we can make an effort, as Martin Luther King did, to understand and to comprehend and replace that violence, that stain of bloodshed that is spread across our land with an effort to understand, compassion, and love.
I'll be writing a piece on that later on today. But the real I think best analogy to me is the buildup to the Civil War here in this country, and the reason why I brought it up, I think Chuck, what you were alluding to was it's very easy in these times, and there's very good reason to look at the other side and say that is the problem, and there's no question in my mind that Donald Trump and the modern Republican Party is a unique threat to our country, to our soul, to our republic, and to what is going on. And I've made no bones about that. I've kind of burned down my career and my business and put my own life and the life of my children who have been threatened in order to speak out against what I see as this ill. But as you also know from listening and putting up with me the way Chuck has over the years, I don't think that it's a problem that is particular and specific to the Republican Party. This is a social problem. It's a social phenomenon. And as much as we as political people want to see the whole world through Republican or Democratic eyes, The vast majority of Americans do not. They are kind of like, when Chuck was talking about walking through the Yosemite Valley, they don't see these beautiful things or see life through red or blue lenses. They see them as Americans, as fathers, as daughters, as mothers, as brothers and sisters. And we are at a moment now. We are at a moment where we are so deeply hateful, and that is the right word, of one another from a partisan perspective, that we do not trust each other. We do not want to be with each other. And we are now killing each other. And this didn't start with Charlie Kirk, of course. Just less than a month ago, we had 2 Democratic legislators in Minnesota have their home broken into. Melissa Hortman unfortunately lost her life. Another legislator was seriously hospitalized by somebody from the right wing who wanted to kill them. Congressman Scalise, Nancy Pelosi's husband. It goes on and on. And what's important to understand, and what I articulated, and this might sound somewhat controversial, but I want everybody to really kind of breathe it in just a moment. The Civil War is not coming. The Civil War is here. We are in the midst of a civil conflict where killing is happening for political reasons. That's the definition of a civil war. It's not going to look like cannons and muskets and people putting on a blue coat or red coat and showing up to fight on some open battlefield. That's not what civil war is going to look like in the future. The future is now, and it's going to be people who don't agree with you politically being killed in their homes. It's going to be violence between legislators, which we're very, very close to seeing that. If you saw that on the House of Representatives, about a moment of silence, about praying, people losing decorum and screaming at one another. Our political leadership has failed, right and left. Let me say that again. Our political leadership has failed. And when we embody and breathe in language that Donald Trump has used and normalized to degrade and to dehumanize and to affect violence, which he clearly has, as did Charlie Kirk throughout his career. That's what made him as big a name as he is. And then to see Democrats respond. And I'm not making false equivalencies here, but if you think I am, then you need to take some self-inventory. But you can't say let's fight fire with fire. That is a term of violence. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, can't say we are in a war when you're talking about redistricting. That is the language of violence. And the reason why that is so dangerous is when our political leadership resorts to that language, the inevitable, history tells us the inevitable next step is violence. All of the evidence, all of the long-term trends are pointing to more violence. I believe this is going to get worse before it gets better. I've said that here before. I've written on it at great length in my Substack. I wrote a piece on August 6th predicting that this was coming, not Charlie Kirk, of course, but that this was going to define this next political era. It's going to last us at least a decade. There will be more assassinations. I hate to say that, but I'm also going to be very sober and clear-eyed about this. There is going to be violence. We are entering a period of extended violence in this country because our political system is collapsing, and our political leadership does not have the will nor the skill set to guide us out of this. And until we develop that, unfortunately, we are going to be stuck with this, and it will last us until our anger is exhausted, until we grow tired and weary as a people of the violence and the death and the harm and the destruction of this country. So, sorry, Chuck. That's
no. I wanted to hear. You said a lot of this last night, and I thought was good for folks who aren't following on both. I know you charge $95 a month to listen to you on Substack. This one's free. But look, there's 2 things I want to talk on that I was thinking about after I heard you last night, because I've had all morning, and there's been a lot of people around me who've called me or talked to me about it, including my wife. I won't talk about our private conversations, but folks worry about me. I'm in the eye like you are. Like I'm on TV every day. Got all these podcasts. Hell, anybody knows I'll speak about him again. I put out a lot of content. Sometimes she's like, I can't keep up with all the shit you're doing, and I tap out. I can't listen to everything. So I'm out there. So my mama, my family worry about me. Now, I'm not one of these hell raisers. And hell, to be honest, Democrats hate me worse than Republicans have been meaner to me than any Republican ever has been. That's a conversation for another day, and I accept some of that. But the 2 things I keep asking myself why, and this ain't about like we're better than this bullshit. Like I know that you're not on that train and I'm not either. Is there's two things I want y'all to think about from the political practitioner's perspective. One thing that's really different for me is the internet. And not that the internet's to blame for everything, and it's not. And were there bad people 20 years ago? There was, but there wasn't things that happened as quickly. And because of the internet, there's always been crazy people. There's always been people on the far left and the far right. But the way that obstructed platforms and algorithms stoke hate and people make money off of hate makes people go crazy. And I have people walk up to me all the time and ask me some of the stupidest shit that I'm like, how do you know that that's not right? And I don't mean that they're stupid. They're just asking me a stupid question that's a pretty easy, what do you call it, Mike? It's you
Debunked.
can debunk it very easily, but they've read it all over their social media.
Yeah.
So they assume that it's right.
Mm-hmm.
And these people don't want to harm America. They literally think that they're defending something. And I think that's a big part of what we're missing here. And then it drives people who may be on the fringe already, who can't find some solace or some calming thing in there, who've never been through trauma. I just watch how other people react to trauma and hate speech, and all I can do is talk about me. I've got people that called me this morning and said I couldn't sleep all night long. I slept like a baby last night. I slept for 8 hours. It don't mean I don't think Charlie Kirk was gunned down for a reason. I hate everything that happened about it. But because of the trauma I've lived through in my life and the way my body puts it in a compartment, I can sleep and get up the next morning and deal with it because I've dealt with trauma all the time. So I'm kind of like a callus a little bit. Don't mean I don't feel, but we all have our own way to deal with it.
Right.
And don't mean that mine's right. It means that I'm probably more screwed up than most because things bounce off of me pretty easy because I was taught to keep it all in. But I've had people call me this morning. It's like, I can't even think. And these are Democrats, again, saying what happened and watching that stupid video is so traumatizing, thinking about his wife and his little girls. And then you put that on the internet. You couldn't go on Twitter right after it happened and not see it in every other thing on your Twitter, stoking everything that the people were feeling. Not that it was right or wrong. Again, it's just something that's very different than in the age of the Civil War. But even in the Civil War, they had pamphlets, they had other way to communicate, not wrong or right. I'm just highlighting a difference. Let me make one more point. We've talked a lot about redistricting on this program, and I swear to God, this is connected. And it's not about who's redistricting and who's not. But to Mike's point about us and the politicians not having the courage to really want to fix it, either party, is that either party, 95% of those people never have to seek a general election because they're in a safe red or a safe blue seat. So the only way they can be beat is somebody beat them in their own primary, which is normally the folks we've talked about on this show that vote in a primary are the left of the left or the right of the right because they care enough to vote in a primary. So they think not having the courage to try to fix something makes them safe. That's the courage they don't have, is they don't have the courage to take on somebody from their own party, Democrat or Republican. So we end up over many, 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 many cycles. And then you add in the internet of folks who have literally no spine to fix it, Democrats or Republicans. And that's my thoughts on those two, Mike.
No, and I thanks for that. I mean, look, this is everybody's processing differently, and everybody's entitled to whatever it is that you feel, however you're going to feel it. This was a political assassination, and let me be really clear. I don't agree with Charlie Kirk. I think he was inherently good because that's just my faith tradition. I believe everybody's inherently good, but this was not somebody who was doing. He wasn't passing the human being test very well. Okay, I think he was spewing a lot of really poisonous, acidic, bad stuff. Okay. I think he was a child of God. I think he was loved by God, and I think that he was not beyond redemption. But I don't think he was doing a lot of good stuff and making America a better place to be. Having said that, I don't think he deserved to be shot and killed in cold blood because of his political beliefs. And as a country, political assassinations of very big figures are shocking to the consciousness of a nation, and they should be, because they force us to reflect on the fact that as shocking and jarring as this was, I think most people step back and go, yeah, of course somebody is being killed in America today who is expressing political beliefs, because we've been traveling down this road for a very long time. And in hearing a lot of the politicians saying, this is not who we are, this is exactly who we are. And until we are self-aware enough to own that, we're not going to start fixing it. We're in bad shape. Our politics are broken, man. They're broken. And the way we talk to each other, has become an accepted practice of dehumanizing and using violent rhetoric as if we're at war. And I think one of the really crazy things about this moment is, as bad as things are and as tough as they are and as expensive as it is to get along in this world, and as much as the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, our problems are fixable. Our problems are surmountable. If we focus more energy on fixing our problems instead of killing each other, like literally killing each other at this point, we would be so much better off as a people, so much better off as individuals, so much better off as community. And I'm not going to say, who's more and less responsible. Obviously, I believe that there's one side is more responsible for this. Like, obviously, I don't need to justify that. But I'm also going to admit my own culpability here, Chuck. I've engaged in this shit. I was on a Lincoln project.
Me too. Absolutely. Me too.
And I need to take some self-inventory too, and say, what's my role in this as somebody with a platform, as somebody that people listen to? How am I degrading this system as well? How many times have I said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just go fight because there's no fixing it. And if you're going to fight, we're going to beat you first and win because it's a zero-sum winner take all. And that's me adding to this problem. And the only way out, as Dr. King told us, darkness can't drive out darkness. Only light can fix the darkness. You can't fight fire with fire, brother. You fight fire with water. When you don't, you just burn everything down. And it's tougher to be the bigger person. But every time America has come out better and stronger, it's been because we've had a moral victory. We had the moral high ground in our Revolutionary War against a king. We had the moral high ground as the Union fighting against slavery in the Civil War. We had the moral high ground in World War II when we were fighting the rise of Nazism and fascism in this dark shadow coming over Europe. We had the high ground when we were fighting for civil rights in the 60s. We need to maintain the moral high ground now. It doesn't mean you don't fight. Doesn't mean you just keep taking licks from the other side and let them steamroll you. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, if you debase yourself and become the enemy in order to defeat them, you've already lost. And we're losing that sense of ourselves right now because of our fear, understandably. But we've got to maintain the moral high ground as we engage in these fights. Otherwise, we end up losing just by entering the arena.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's important to say what Charlie Kirk was doing. Again, I don't agree with all the things that he would say. I disagree with most of the things. But, there were things that Charlie Kirk and I agreed on. I was telling Ebony this the other night. Like, there are just not everything with every person because they're Republican or conservative means I hate them. But we never look at what draws us together. And, Charlie Kirk would do what we and what our democracy was built on, which is go to the public square, get folks who disagree with you, and let's have a debate. Let's talk about what you think is right and what I think is right, and let's figure it out. Now, he was a prolific debater, so it really wasn't fair, and he was good at it. So that's why he did the tours. And for all of you Democrats who want to be organizers, he used it to organize. Mm-hmm. And he was damn good at it. Whatever methods he had or you agree or disagree with, you can't take away from him the way that he organized on campuses and built something from nothing and organized college campuses to really help Donald Trump. The other thing I want to say is not about his life as a father or a son and brother. Like, that's a given. Like, none of God's children, to Mike's point, nobody should ever end their lives. But there are folks in all of our lives. There's people in my family. There are people that I grew up with. I thought about that this week as well, is that I'm taking Ebony, Mike, you'll appreciate this, to give us a little lightness here. I'm taking her to East Texas because a buddy of mine called, Stan, and said, we're going to play golf after the homecoming game in a few weeks. Glenn's coming over. Chance is coming down. All us boys who went to high school together. Now, keep in mind, there's only 99 kids in my senior class.
I love that.
And so I told Ebony, I was like, Ebony, you ever been to a homecoming game? And Ebony's like, what's a homecoming game? I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, my high school homecoming is on October the 10th. And the boys want me to come. We're all going to go to the game together. Keep in mind, Chuck Rocha, all-state football player, Brownsboro, Texas. And the next day, we're going to play golf and then hang out with the boys and their wives for dinner Saturday night. Me and her fly back on Sunday. Just a quick trip down to Dallas to East Texas. Now, I tell you that to say, to connect it to this. Every one of those boys are diehard MAGA. Now, or at least solid red Republicans, but a couple of them are damn sure MAGA to the bone.
Mm-hmm.
And they love me. They love everything about me. And they know I'm a Democrat. When I get there, they'll give me shit about, like, they'll be talking me up, me don't want to be transgendered or whatever, because that's how they like to fuck with me.
Right.
And there's no, if I was going to jail and I needed to get some folks to get me, these boys would be on my top 10 list along with you and a few other folks that I know would come get me. But they're MAGA. That's the point here. It don't mean that they're anything about them is bad. It's just what they believe. And I that's fine. We can have our disagreements and still be best friends and play golf and go to homecoming. Folks know here that Mike Madrid and I are going to disagree on policy and we can debate the policy. But there's not a doubt in my mind that Mike Madrid wants nothing bad to happen to anybody. He is a devout Catholic. He knows more about the Bible and Christianity than I'll ever know. Hell, and I'm going to try to think that I'm better than him. Well, I am at certain things. We all know that. But I digress. Point of my matter, I went down the wrong rabbit hole here, is my best friends from high school, who I'm going to see in a few weeks, are as red can be and as MAGA as MAGA. But we don't never look at the things that bring us together with people, because people are making money on tearing us apart.
That's
and the
right.
Algorithms make even more money on tearing us apart. That's the part I think we really have to fix.
That's so well said, because that look, Charlie Kirk was he was a brilliant guy. I wish he would have tapped into the better angels of his nature a little bit more and used that power to talk about Americanness and bring everybody up, instead of kind of focusing on this, perceived internal enemy and dividing us. And like I said, I don't believe anybody is beyond redemption, as long as they're, seriously
Pick me. I'm living proof. Both of us, actually.
Yeah, because once you're committed to doing the right thing and being a better person and bringing people together, I think that door opens for you. And I'm sure that Charlie Kirk believed that he was doing that in some way. I think it's apparent to most people. You can't be that hated that much if you're preaching, something that is bigger. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. Martin Luther King was hated in his time. You look at people who don't conform to a certain life view, and you're going to be hated so long as you're in the public eye speaking your mind. But what I will say is, I think that what we have lost is the ability to speak to each other in a way that finds that common ground. You and I disagree on a lot politically, but we also are committed to our community and making people's lives better. I think that comes from the way we grew up, which was pretty similar, and a commitment to making the world a better place. And as long as we remain committed to that, I think we get there. Like I said, I have no doubt in my mind things, Chuck, are going to get worse before they get better. There's just too much evidence showing that. But I do believe that they are going to get better. I do believe that. I believe it's in our character as a nation. I think we've been through worse times before, but this is going to be a rough, bumpy road.
I agree. I think there will be some bumps. And I think that we've got to get back to the internet and the way that modern culture works. We know less about our neighbors now. We know less about folks around our community, when before people could sit on their front porch and got to know each other. Not that we've got to take a step back or the internet's to blame for all of this. None of that. A lot of this is just human nature. Like, there's a reason why WWE was the most watched TV program on Monday night, because folks like to watch chaos and they are drawn to it, right? And again, the algorithms and other things draw us there. Charlie Kirk or whoever who spews whatever. Chuck Rocha. Let me put that back on me. I make TV ads for a living, call Republicans everything but the second coming of the demon Satan, because they want to cut Medicaid or whatever. Like, Democrats, we need to take a look too. We call a lot of people Hitler out here. And there could be people who have fascist tendencies, folks who want to be a dictator, be doing things that we disagree with, but we should talk about them in those terms of, like, they're trying to take care of them when we should be taking care of people. Not that we should be like ending things and doing things. Everybody needs to take a step back. And I'm going to now self-reflect, not only with folks around me, but also with me, right? Because I can't demagogue it or whatever that thing is without knowing that I'm part of that problem as well, but a small part. But here's what I do know is I have to sit in a green room 2 or 3 times a week, again, with my privilege at CNN, CBS, and TV stations with Scott Jennings, Shermichael, and lots of other Trump Republicans. And you sit there for hours sometimes just in a green room. Don't think that we don't talk to each other, right? And you know me, I'm going to fuck with everybody. And I fuck with them like I do Mike Madrid and everybody else because that's my personality. I disarm people with humor and all shucksism. I want people to like me. I've always had that problem. I want people to like me. I've always felt lesser than in lots of instances because of my education or whatever. And so if I get you to like me because I'm making a joke or whatever, then we can start talking. But that made me a good organizer too when I was organizing people. So guess what? I get along with Scott Jennings. That's going to make a lot of you out there crazy. But Scott Jennings can be crazy and he can spew hate. So can a lot of the other ones. But I've gotten to know him and other Republicans where I look for the things that bring us together. Scott Jennings talks to me because he's from Kentucky and I'm from East Texas. And we talk about our grandmothers and country cooking or whatever the thing may be. And then we'll fight. We'll fight about issues on air. Absolutely. And do I agree with even 80% of what he believes? No. But I have tried to find my better angels to Mike Madrid's place to look for something that will make me want to like and be around those people for the few things. I think we need to do a lot more of that thing.
I think we got to want each other again. And I think one of the things I said on that podcast you're listening to was until we get to the point where we want a better future more than we hate the other party now, until we get to that point, things are going to keep getting worse. And I'm ready to turn the page on all of this stuff. I know the president of the United States is not, but we need to quit looking to him for leadership. We kind of need to be what the world that we want to be, and that doesn't make you naive. It doesn't make you weak. In fact, I think it makes you stronger. There's a reason why we still talk about Martin Luther King more than we talk about most other people, because that was what he preached, and because that's just one of the universal truths, is that love is stronger than any other force in the world. There's a lot of people that have been hateful in this country, but we don't talk about them nearly as much as we talk about the stalwarts, the people who have brought that type of a perspective into the world. And there's a reason for that. And the more we focus on that, I think, in our politics, in our being, and in our way, the better we're going to get. I think as I started this long diatribe here, our political leadership can't get us out of this. They're not capable. And I don't mean that they're bad people. I mean that the system is so broken that political leaders cannot fix our society. Our society is going to have to fix our politics. And that's what I've learned in 30 years, 35 years now in the business, Chuck, is we have to fix our politics. Our politics aren't going to fix us.
I think that's well said. And I'm just curious, is the Diet Tribe a skinny Native American? Is that the Diet Tribe? It's a different one. But anyway, thinking about ending this on this note is that next week, y'all should know that it's the annual big CHCI Gala here in DC. We call it Brown Prom Week. So next week, we're going to do our live episode the day before. There'll be a lot of distinguished individuals in town. Mike, I'll start working on seeing who we can get on. But
excellent.
Everybody's going to be in town for the Hispanic Heritage Month, which we're going to be kicking off soon. And then the gala is going to happen on Thursday night. It'll be the first time that we haven't had a president, not the first time, one of the few times we haven't had a president or a candidate at the CHCI. That'll be an interesting gala for Thursday night. And then the last thing I have, Mike, and I'll turn it over to you for some closing thoughts, is that you should know that because we cover the Latino vote and because we cover all things elections, is last night or the night before in Northern Virginia, we had a special election for Virginia 11. That's the seat that the member passed away. He had throat cancer. We had a little firehouse primary, but the general election was last night. It's this Northern District of Virginia that's really synonymous with what and how Virginia has moved more blue. It was a Republican seat 6 years ago. It went to being a moderate to middle of the road seat to Biden winning it by 25 points.
Oh, wow.
Last night, this guy, the congressman's chief of staff, his last name is Walkinshaw, a skinny white boy with glasses, like 40 years old, was a county commissioner, but was a former chief of staff, won 75-25.
Oh, my.
In a district that's like an R plus 15.
A
D
Democrat
plus
won
15.
by 50?
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. He overperformed the Biden number, not the Kamala Harris number, but the Biden number from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
by 12 points. And
What's that tell you?
overperformed.
What's that
Yeah,
tell you?
I mean, it just draws home that these Democrats now, upside down from where we used to be, are the educated. I'll show up in a special election, midterm election with that party
Low
now.
turnout, high information voters.
Wow, I would have never thought in my lifetime I would have ever said that. I grew up bass backwards the opposite way. We hated special
We
elections.
both did. We both learned politics with the exact opposite being 100% true.
This district is one of the highest growing Latino populations. It's probably 10, 12 points, but it grows. It's growing tremendously. Just watch a lot of these districts. I would tell everybody, and we'll talk about it more on the program, but there'll be another one coming up in Tennessee in December. That's an R+6 district. I really want to watch this district. There's a primary there in 2 weeks. So a lot of these specials coming up. We have November elections for the governor of New Jersey and Virginia. So I want to touch on a little bit of political news that was timely before we've signed off. But give us your final thoughts on anything, Charlie Kirk, anything on elections or CHCI.
I don't want to apologize, but I think everybody will give us a little bit of grace here that we're talking about kind of a major political assassination. And of course, today is also September 11th.
Oh, good point.
And so these are important days to commemorate and self-reflect on who we are as a people, what our politics bring about, what we can do to kind of make ourselves a better people, a better place. A lot of lives were lost on September 11th. It's a day that is deeply, deeply etched in my memory. I'll never forget, my 1-year-old son, playing in the yard that day and just kind of walking around in just complete shock, knowing that the world that he was going to grow up in was going to be completely different than the world that I grew up in. And for those of us that remember the before times, they do seem like a quaint, a peaceful, maybe naive time in American history. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. We are in an era that is going to be foundationally, fundamentally different. The world is a dangerous place, not just abroad, but also here at home. But I also want people to remember on a day like today, after the events of yesterday, and as we commemorate the lives lost on September 11th, 2001, that we will get through this, that we have been through times that were as difficult or far, far worse and far, far more challenging. And what they did was they forced us to come together as a people. So whatever you can do in your own daily life, reaching out to people, we all know people on the other side of the aisle. Just don't even talk politics, but just send them a note, let them know you're there. Keep those bonds together and close because they're going to matter. If everybody did that on the same day at one time, I think it would just change the country and change the world. I don't mean to be Pollyannish about this, but we also have to remember, while we didn't talk about a lot of the detailed politics we normally do on a day like today, that politics is a reflection of who we are as a people. And I really, the last piece of advice and wisdom I've learned in all these decades of doing this, Chuck, is again, simply this, is reiterate, our politics are a reflection of who we are. Our politicians reflect us. They very, very rarely are leading us. And if we are looking for our politicians to fix this, we will never get out of it. We have to fix it, and the politicians will respond to that. There's going to be a lot of vitriol. There's going to be a lot of anger. There's going to be a lot of people that want vengeance. We cannot succumb to that, because if vengeance becomes the dominant narrative, we end up in an intractable conflict like we're seeing in the Middle East, where there is no solution. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and the scar tissue builds until there is just an outright outburst of complete destruction of our civilization and the end of our republic. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think we're in the midst of a mighty struggle. So with that, I want you to just kind of take that as sobering, not as depressing. I don't think that's depressing news. I think it's just you got to walk clear-eyed through where we're actually at in order to get out of the haze. In many ways, it's kind of like hopefully hitting rock bottom. And there's a turnabout where you realize, okay, we know what we got to do to get out of it, and that's what we got to do.
I think you're exactly right. And I think that, at the end of this program, a lot of times I tell you, if you're lucky enough to have your mom, my mom was texting me this morning. She was sending me old pictures of me and my sister on a camping trip with a bunch of boys I played football with in 4th grade. If you're lucky enough to have your mom still like I do, you should call her and tell her that you love her. But let's take a step further this week. You should talk to your Republican friends if you're a Democrat. You should call them. You should talk to them and talk to them about Charlie Kirk and talk about how we all need to come together and that this is one America. It sounds, I don't know if it's Pollyannic or 30,000, whatever, but we all have to start being the first part of change. I'll make that commitment. Mike Madrid's make that commitment. Y'all need to make that commitment and not make this about either one of the parties, but about us as a nation. It'll be rough, and it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough tomorrow. There's going to be somebody do something stupid, maybe in retrospect to this, and that's going to try to drive us down another dark hole, and it might for a little bit. But if we all together as a country come together and look at our sisters and our brothers, at what brings us together and what we have in common, we'll be a lot better off. And I'm proud to be here, Mike. I'm proud to have you as a friend, as a Republican. I know you're proud to have me sometimes as a friend, but don't forget to tune in next week. We're going to have a great show. Don't forget to like and follow us. If you ain't on the YouTubes, you're missing these pretty faces. I got a tan while I was gone. Good God Almighty, I am a bronze. Good look. Anyway, don't forget to like us. Don't forget to subscribe to us. Go to the YouTubes. Until next week, we're gone.